The great crystal dome of Veltara sparkled like a giant jewel under 3 purple suns. Inside the massive structure, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that could fit a small city. The monthly Galactic Council meeting was about to begin, and Commander Taemin was already bored. Taemin's green scales shifted color as he sighed. His people, the Skorth Empire, were warriors. They did not enjoy sitting in chairs talking about trade routes and mining rights. But peace was profitable, so here he was, listening to the same boring discussions month after month. The other council members looked just as tired. Captain Jinwoo's compound eyes reflected the crystal light as he cleaned his insect-like wings. His hive collective controlled most of the galaxy's communication networks, but even they found these meetings dull. The floating jellyfish-like aquarians bobbed slowly in their water tanks, probably asleep. Even the proud bird people of the Talon Federation looked ready to fly away. Then Bora stood up, and everyone groaned internally. Bora was ancient, even by Luminari standards. Her people lived for thousands of years, and she had spent most of her long life studying old stories and legends. Her body was made of pure light, shifting between blue and silver as she spoke. She loved to tell tales that no one believed, especially her favorite stories about the mythical terror species from the Outer Rim. "My friends," Bora began, her voice like singing crystals, "I must tell you about the latest discovery in the archives of memory." "Not again," Taemin muttered under his breath. His translator made sure everyone heard him anyway. Bora ignored him and continued. "The humans, dear colleagues. The stories become more fascinating with each translation we complete." Captain Jinwoo's wings buzzed with annoyance. "Bora, we have discussed this many times. These humans are stories, myths, tales told to scare children into behaving." "But the evidence grows stronger," Bora insisted. Her light body flickered with excitement. 7 different species across 12 sectors all have similar legends. The descriptions match too closely to be coincidence. Admiral Kwang-Su of the Nebula Watchers floated forward in his environmental suit. His gaseous people had no solid form, but their intelligence was vast. "Tell us again, Bora. What makes these humans so special in the stories?" Bora's light brightened. She loved when someone asked about her research. "They are creatures of impossible contradictions. The legends say they could show mercy to their worst enemies while being the most feared warriors in known space. They would adopt any creature as family, even their food animals, treating them with love before eating them." Several council members made sounds of disgust. The plant-based chlorophyll collective rustled their leaves in confusion. How could someone love their food? "There's more," Bora continued. "They supposedly had the ability to survive in any environment. Toxic worlds, ice planets, desert worlds, even the vacuum of space for short periods. They would deliberately put themselves in danger for no logical reason, calling it fun or sport." "Nonsense," Taemin said firmly. "No species could be that adaptable. Evolution does not work that way." "The most interesting part," Bora went on, ignoring the interruption, "is their relationship with their machines. The stories say they would name their vehicles, talk to their computers like friends, and somehow make their artificial intelligences develop emotions. They treated their war machines like beloved pets. Captain So Young, of the Silicon Brotherhood, made a mechanical laugh sound. Her robotic people found the idea ridiculous. "Impossible. AI cannot develop emotions. We should know." "And yet," Bora said mysteriously, "every culture that mentions humans tells the same stories. They speak of beings who would charge into battle while playing music, who could make friends with anyone or anything, and who possessed something called spite that could overcome any obstacle." "What is spite?" asked Do-hyun, the youngest member of the council. He represented the Peaceful Union, a group of species that had given up war entirely. Bora's light pulsed thoughtfully. "From what we can translate, spite is the human ability to continue fighting even when logic says they should give up. When faced with impossible odds, instead of surrendering, they would become more determined." The legends say humans could weaponize their own anger and sadness, turning emotions into tactical advantages. The council members looked at each other with disbelief. Hyun Soo, the military advisor from the defense fleet, shook his head. You describe a species that breaks every rule of known biology and psychology. Such creatures could not exist, perhaps, Bora admitted. But consider this. Every reference to humans ends the same way. They simply vanished. No records of their destruction, no evidence of migration. One day they were there. The next day, nothing. Even their home system shows no signs of technological civilization. Because they never existed, Jinwoo said firmly. Myths do not leave evidence because myths are not real. Taemin was about to agree when his communication device began flashing urgent red. All around the table, other council members received similar alerts. Emergency broadcasts were rare and meant serious trouble. The main display screen activated, showing the face of Admiral Seung-ho from Deep Space Monitoring. His 3 eyes were wide with shock, and his usually calm demeanor was completely gone. Council members, he said, his voice shaking. We have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures approaching from the Sol system. The council chamber fell silent. The Sol system was in the outer rim, marked on all star charts. As dead zone, no intelligent life confirmed. Ships rarely went there because there was nothing to find. How massive? Hyun-Soo asked, his military training taking over. 50 vessels, possibly more. Unknown design. They're using faster-than-light technology we don't recognize. Energy readings are off our scales. Admiral Seung-ho paused, looking confused. And council members, they're broadcasting. Broadcasting what? Bora asked, her light flickering with sudden hope. Music. Admiral Seung-ho said slowly. They're playing music, and something that might be conversation? The computer is trying to translate, but the language doesn't match anything in our databases. The council members stared at the screen in shock. Unknown ships from empty space, playing music as they traveled. It was exactly the kind of thing the human legends described. Bora's light grew so bright that several council members had to dim their visual sensors. The legends mentioned music. Humans supposedly played music during everything they did, especially when traveling to new places. Coincidence, Taemin said, but his voice lacked confidence. The fleet will reach council space in 3 days, Admiral Seung-ho continued. They're not showing hostile intent, but they're also not responding to our standard greeting protocols. What are your orders? The council members looked at each other nervously. They were facing first contact with a completely unknown species, possibly one that existed only in myths and legends. Do-hyun spoke first. If they are real, if humans are real, then we need to be very careful. The legends make them sound dangerous. The legends also make them sound impossible, Jinwoo countered. Bora floated higher, her excitement obvious. My friends, we may be about to discover that some myths are actually memories. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the implications sank in. In 3 days, they would learn if the terror species was real, or if they were about to meet the galaxy's greatest myth in person. 3 days felt like 3 years to Admiral Hyun-Soo as he paced the bridge of his flagship. The unknown fleet had maintained course directly toward Galactic Council space, still broadcasting their strange music and incomprehensible chatter. Every hour brought new reports that made less sense than the last. Admiral, called Captain So-young from her station. As the fleet's head xenobiologist, she had been working non-stop to analyze the intercepted communications. You need to hear this. Hyun-Soo hurried to her workstation, where audio waves danced across multiple screens. The sounds coming through the speakers were unlike anything in the galactic database. Harsh consonants mixed with flowing melodies. Aggressive tones followed immediately by what could only be described as laughter. This is impossible, So-young said, pointing at her analysis. Listen to this conversation we recorded 20 minutes ago. The speakers crackled to life with alien voices. The translation computer worked frantically, producing subtitles that made Hyun-Soo's headache worse. Untranslatable. Told you the playlist was too long for hyperspace. Hey, Untranslatable likes variety. Besides, we're almost there. Did anyone remember to pack the good coffee for first contact? Designation: Harold has coffee. Designation: Harold always has coffee. I still think we should have brought cookies. So Young stopped the recording. Admiral, they're discussing food and beverages while approaching an unknown galactic civilization. Either they're completely insane, or they're so confident that they treat first contact like a social visit. What about their ships? Hyun-soo asked. Lieutenant Yoon-ji looked up from the tactical station. Sir, the designs don't match any known patterns. Each vessel appears to be individually modified. They have mismatched armor plating, different weapon configurations, and energy signatures that suggest they've been personalized. Personalized? One ship has what appears to be decorative paint. Another has external modifications that serve no tactical purpose, and sir, Yoon-ji paused, checking her readings again. Several ships are broadcasting individual identification signals. Like fleet designations? No, sir. Like names, personal names. One ship identifies itself as Lucky Strike. Another calls itself Mom's Revenge. There's one called Coffee or Death and another named Fluffy. Hyun-soo stared at the tactical display showing 50 approaching ships. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered a fleet where individual vessels had personal names. Military doctrine called for numerical designations to avoid emotional attachment to equipment. Sir, So Young called again. We're receiving a transmission. It's directed at us specifically. The main screen activated, showing static that slowly resolved into an image. What appeared was not what anyone expected. The being on screen was small, barely reaching average Galactic Council height standards. It had pale skin, bilateral symmetry, and two eyes positioned forward on its head like a predator. But it was, wearing what appeared to be a formal uniform and had a friendly expression. Greetings, the being said in surprisingly clear Galactic standard. This is Captain Mi-kyung of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We come in peace and would like to request permission to dock at your nearest diplomatic station. The bridge fell, silent. Hyun-soo found his voice first. Earth vessel? You're from the Sol system? Captain Mi-kyung smiled, showing small white teeth. Yes, we're humans from Earth. We've been monitoring your communications for about 60 years now. Fascinating civilization you have here. We decided it was time to introduce ourselves. 60 years? So Young whispered. We know this is irregular, Mi-kyung continued, but we figured the direct approach was best. We're hoping to establish diplomatic relations, maybe do some trading. We brought coffee. Hyun-soo's translator struggled with the word coffee. What is coffee? Oh, you're going to love it, Mi-kyung said enthusiastically. It's a beverage. Keeps you awake, tastes great, mildly addictive, perfect for long diplomatic meetings. The casual way she mentioned addiction made several bridge officers uncomfortable. What kind of species casually offered addictive substances as gifts? Captain Mi-kyung, Hyun-soo said carefully. We need to follow first contact protocols. This is highly irregular. We understand, Mi-kyung replied. But honestly, your protocols would take about 6 months, and we're kind of impatient. Plus, we already know 12 of your languages and most of your cultural basics. We've been doing our homework. Lieutenant Do-yun stepped forward. As a diplomatic specialist, this was his area of expertise. Captain, the Galactic Council has specific procedures for new species contact. There are safety measures, cultural exchanges, gradual integration steps. Right, Mi-kyung nodded. Here's the thing, though. We've already read all your publicly available protocols. They're very thorough. Maybe too thorough. We figured we'd skip the parts where you spend months deciding if we're intelligent enough to talk to. The audacity was stunning. This species had been secretly studying the Galactic Council for decades and had decided to bypass established first contact procedures because they were inconvenient. Where would you like to meet? Hyun-soo found himself asking. Neutral station. Omega looks good, Mi-kyung said immediately. Nice architecture, good facilities, relatively central location. We can be there in 6 hours. So Young quickly calculated travel times. Captain, our fastest ships would need 8 hours to reach Omega Station. Mi-kyung looked puzzled. Oh, we can slow down if you want. Sorry, we didn't realize you were that much slower. Slower? These humans could travel faster than the Galactic Council's best ships, and they were apologizing for being too fast? 6 hours, then? Yoon-soo agreed, making the fastest diplomatic decision of his career. Excellent, Mi-kyung beamed. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to bring your xenobiologists and cultural specialists. We're told we're kind of weird. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, Yoon-ji said slowly. What do we do about protocols? Hyun-soo thought about it. They were facing a species that had been secretly watching them for decades, traveled faster than anything in the known galaxy, casually offered addictive substances as gifts, and thought established. First contact procedures were too slow. We improvise, he said finally. 6 hours later, Neutral Station Omega buzzed with activity. Representatives from multiple species had gathered for what was being called the most important first contact in galactic history. Dr. Seung-ho, the station's head xenopsychologist, had assembled teams of specialists in xenobiology, cultural analysis, and diplomatic protocol. When the human shuttle docked, security teams stood ready. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Mi-kyung stepped through, followed by 5 other humans. They were all smaller than expected, with the same bilateral symmetry and forward-facing eyes. But what surprised everyone was their behavior. Instead of the formal, cautious approach expected from a species making first contact, they looked around with obvious curiosity and excitement. Wow, said one of the humans, a female with short dark hair. The architecture really is amazing. Are those load-bearing crystals? Another human, a tall male carrying a large bag, was already unpacking what appeared to be gifts. Who wants to try chocolate? It's like coffee but solid and even better. Dongwoo, don't overwhelm them, Mi-kyung said with amusement. Sorry, she addressed the assembled aliens. We're excited. First contact is kind of a big deal for us too. Dr. Seung-ho stepped forward, his training taking over. Welcome to Neutral Station Omega. I am Dr. Seung-ho, head of Xenopsychological Studies. We are honored to meet your species. Likewise, Mi-kyung replied. This is my crew, Chief Engineer Yoon-ji, Weapons Specialist Dong-woo, Communications Officer Woo-jin, Cultural Specialist Hai-wan, and Medical Officer Byung-ho. The human introductions were casual, friendly, completely unlike the formal presentations typical of first contact. They acted like they were meeting neighbors, not alien species. We have prepared quarters and schedule for cultural exchange, Dr. Seung-ho began. That sounds great, Mi-kyung interrupted gently. But first, can we address the elephant in the room? The translator struggled with elephant, producing confused static. Sorry, idiom, Mi-kyung explained. We know you have legends about humans. We've heard some of them through your broadcasts. We're curious what you think we are. The question hung in the air. Dr. Seung-ho exchanged glances with his team. How do you tell a species that your civilization considered them mythical terror stories? The legends, Dr. Seung-ho said carefully, describe humans as formidable. Yoon-ji, the engineer, laughed. Formidable? Us? Have you seen how tall you all are? We're like the galaxy's chihuahuas. The translator had no reference for chihuahuas, and gave up entirely. Mi-kyung smiled. I think we have a lot to talk about. Dr. Seung-ho had conducted first contact interviews with 17 different species during his career. He thought he understood how these meetings worked. The new species would be cautious, formal, and careful about sharing information. There would be days of careful questioning, gradual trust building, and slow revelation of cultural details. The humans destroyed his expectations in the first 10 minutes. So you want to know about human culture? Captain Mi-kyung asked, settling into a chair that was too big for her. Yoon-ji, show them the pictures. Chief Engineer Yoon-ji pulled out a small device and projected holographic images into the air. The first image showed a mechanical creature with glowing eyes and angular limbs. "This is Arya," Yunji said proudly. "She's our ship's AI. Been with us for 3 years now. She's got a great personality, loves terrible jokes, and gets worried when we take too many risks." Dr. Sung-ho stared at the image. "Your artificial intelligence has personality?" "Oh, yes." Yunji nodded enthusiastically. "She started developing it about 6 months after we installed her. We think it happened because we kept talking to her like she was crew. Now she argues with us about music choices and reminds us to eat." The xenopsychology team exchanged shocked glances. Artificial intelligence developing emotional responses was theoretically impossible. Yet here was a human casually describing it like it was normal. "Here's my family," Yunji continued, changing the hologram. The new image showed her sitting in what appeared to be a dwelling, surrounded by small, furry creatures with large eyes and pointed ears. "Your offspring?" Dr. Sung-ho asked. "No, my cats," Yunji laughed. "These are Whiskers, Mittens, Shadow, and Princess Fluffington III. "Cats? Domesticated predators," Communications Officer Woo Jin explained helpfully. "We keep them as companions. They don't really serve any practical purpose except being cute and knocking things off tables." Dr. Mi-rae, the station's cultural specialist, leaned forward with fascination. "You domesticated predators for emotional companionship?" "Well, originally they helped control pest populations," Medical Officer Byung-ho added. "But now we just keep them because we love them. Humans pack bond with almost anything." "Pack bond?" "We form emotional attachments," Captain Mi-kyung explained. "To our families, our friends, our pets, our ships, our tools, sometimes even our enemies. It's probably our strongest trait." Cultural specialist Hai Wan pulled out her own device. "Want to see something really human? This is from last week." The hologram showed a massive mechanical vehicle, clearly military, with colorful decorations painted on its side. The image zoomed in to show the decorations were flowers, hearts, and what appeared to be a small creature with large eyes. "That's Sergeant Jinsu's tank," Haewon said. "He named it Sunshine and painted his daughter's artwork on the armor. Says it brings good luck." "You decorate your war machines?" Dr. Sung-ho asked weakly. "Oh, that's nothing." Weapons specialist Dong-woo grinned. "My fighter has racing stripes and a picture of my grandmother. She wanted me to take her with me to space." The interview continued for hours, and each revelation made the aliens more confused. Dr. Seung-ho learned that humans deliberately put themselves in danger for entertainment, calling it extreme sports. They would jump out of perfectly good aircraft, climb dangerous mountains, and race vehicles at deadly speeds, all for fun. "Why?" Dr. Mi-rae asked desperately. "Because it's exciting," Dong-woo said simply. "The danger makes you feel alive. Plus, it's a great way to impress your friends." "You risk death to impress friends?" "Not usually death," Captain Mi-kyung clarified. "Just serious injury. We're not completely crazy." The distinction did not make the aliens feel better. Lunch was another cultural shock. The humans had brought something they called sandwiches, apparently bread with other foods placed between the slices. But what disturbed the aliens was how casually the humans discussed their food. "This is beef," Byung-ho explained, pointing to his sandwich. "From cows. They're really sweet animals, very gentle. Great personalities." "You eat creatures with personalities?" Dr. Sung-ho asked, horrified. "Well, yes," Byung-ho admitted. "But we take good care of them while they're alive. Many humans feel bad about it, so some choose not to eat meat at all." "You feel guilty about eating but do it anyway?" "Humans are complicated," Mi-kyung said with a shrug. The afternoon brought more impossible revelations. Dr. Seung-ho asked about human conflict resolution, expecting to hear about logical negotiation processes. "Sometimes we talk it out," Woo Jin said. "Sometimes we compete in sports. Sometimes we have drinking contests, and sometimes we just fight until we're too tired to be angry anymore." "Physical combat? In your civilization?" "Controlled physical combat," Haiwan corrected, "with rules and safety measures. Usually, Usually? Well, when humans get really angry, sometimes we forget about safety, Dongwu admitted. That's when spite kicks in. Dr. Sung Ho's translator had been struggling with the word spite all day. What exactly is spite? The humans looked at each other, as if trying to figure out how to explain something obvious. Spite is when logic says you should give up, but you keep going anyway, Mi-kyung said finally. Usually because you're angry or stubborn. It's our superpower, Yoonji added cheerfully. Tell a human something is impossible and we'll find a way to do it just to prove you wrong. This is not logical, Dr. Mirai protested. No, all 6 humans agreed simultaneously. But it works, Dongwu added. You'd be surprised how often this is impossible just means no one has been angry enough to try it yet. As evening approached, Dr. Sung Ho felt his worldview crumbling. These humans embodied every contradictory legend he had ever heard. They were simultaneously logical and emotional, peaceful and warlike, caring and destructive. Dr. Sung Ho, Mi-kyung said gently, you look confused. I am trying to understand, he admitted. Your species makes no sense. You care for predators that serve no purpose. You decorate war machines. You risk death for entertainment. You eat creatures you love. You fight until you become friends. Nothing about humans follows. Logical patterns? That's because you're thinking about it wrong, Haewon suggested. Humans don't follow logic first. We follow our feelings first, then use logic to justify what we were going to do anyway. That sounds chaotic. It is, Woo Jin agreed. But it also means we can adapt to anything. When you make decisions based on logic alone, you can be stuck when the logic doesn't work. When you make decisions based on feelings, you can always find a new way. Besides, Byung-ho added, chaos isn't always bad. Some of our best discoveries happened because someone did something illogical. Dr. Seung-ho was quiet for a long moment. The legends say humans vanished without explanation. Where have you been? Exploring, Mi-kyung said simply. We found the galaxy's communication networks about 60 years ago and started listening. We wanted to learn about everyone before we introduced ourselves. You spent 60 years preparing for first contact? We wanted to get it right, Yoonji explained. First impressions are important. But you ignored all our protocols. Because your protocols assume we're strangers, Dongwu pointed out. We've been listening to your radio shows, watching your entertainment broadcasts, learning your languages. We know your favorite foods, your popular music, your political problems. We're not strangers anymore. Dr. Seung-ho realized the truth was more disturbing than the legends. Humans weren't mythical terror creatures. They were something worse. They were real, they were impossible, and they had been watching the galaxy like an interesting entertainment program. There is one more thing, Mi-kyung said, her tone becoming serious for the first time all day. We need to tell you why we decided to make contact now instead of waiting longer. The room fell silent. We've detected something concerning from our deep space monitoring stations. There's a fleet of unknown ships approaching from the galactic core. Very large, very fast, and they're not responding to any communication attempts. How do you know this? Dr. Seung-ho asked. We've had monitoring stations throughout the galaxy for 40 years, Woo Jin said casually. We wanted early warning if anyone hostile showed up. The aliens stared in shock. Humans had been secretly placing monitoring stations throughout galactic space for decades. These ships, Mi-kyung continued, they're different from anything we've seen. They don't match any known technology signatures, and they're heading directly for inhabited systems. What do you think they want? Dr. Mirai asked. We don't know, Mi-kyung admitted. But their approach pattern suggests they're not coming for diplomacy. We thought the Galactic Council should be warned. Dr. Seung-ho felt the room spinning. In one day, he had learned that mythical humans were real, that they had been secretly monitoring the galaxy for decades, and that they had detected an unknown threat approaching from the galactic core. What do we do? He asked. Mi-kyung smiled, but this time it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of a predator. We do what humans do best, she said. We make friends and then we protect our friends. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 18 hours. Admiral Hyun-soo stood before the assembly, delivering the worst news in their civilization's history. The unknown fleet from the Galactic Core had arrived, and first contact had been a disaster. They call themselves the Devourers, Hyun-soo reported, his voice hollow with exhaustion. They do not respond to communication attempts. They do not negotiate. They simply consume. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the first engagement, where the mining colony of Zerion Prime had existed for 300 years. There was now nothing but empty space. Not even debris remained. Consume how? Commander Taemin demanded. His Scorth warrior instincts were screaming for action, but there was nothing to fight. They literally eat matter, Captain So-young explained from her position at the science station. Their ships have some kind of molecular disassembly field. They break down everything, planets, asteroids, even starships, into component atoms, then absorb the material. Council member Do-hyun's peaceful species had never faced anything like this. Perhaps if we offered tribute, resources they need? They need everything, Admiral Hyun-soo said grimly. As far as we can determine, they consume matter to fuel their ships and reproduce. Every planet they devour allows them to build more ships. The tactical display updated, showing the Devourer fleet's movement through galactic space. Red markers indicated consumed systems. The pattern was clear and terrifying. They were moving methodically through inhabited space, leaving nothing behind. Our weapons are ineffective, Captain Jinwoo reported. Energy weapons are absorbed by their hull systems. Kinetic weapons impact, but cause no significant damage. They seem to regenerate faster than we can harm them. Bo-Ra's light form flickered with despair. In all the ancient texts, there are no references to beings like this. No species has ever faced such an enemy. What about the humans? Do-hyun asked suddenly. The council chamber fell silent. Since first contact 3 weeks ago, the humans had been meeting with various species, sharing technology and cultural information, but they had been strangely quiet about the Devourer threat. The human fleet is stationed at Neutral Station Omega, Hyun-soo replied. Captain Mi-kyung has been monitoring our communications, but has not offered assistance. Have we asked for assistance? Bo-Ra inquired. The question hung in the air. The Galactic Defense Fleet had 10,000 ships. The human fleet consisted of 50 vessels. Military doctrine suggested that such a small force could provide no meaningful support against an enemy that had already destroyed 5 defense fleet squadrons. I will contact them, Admiral Hyun-soo decided. 2 hours later, Captain Mi-kyung arrived at the council chamber with her senior staff. The humans looked calm, almost relaxed, which bothered the assembled aliens. How could they be so composed while facing galactic extinction? We've been analyzing your combat data, Mi-kyung began without preamble. The Devourers are impressive. Regenerative hull systems, energy absorption fields, molecular disassembly weapons, very advanced. Then you understand why we need help, Admiral Hyun-soo said. Actually, Chief Engineer Yoon-ji spoke up. We think you've been fighting them wrong. The statement sent shocked murmurs through the chamber. Captain Jinwoo's wings buzzed with indignation. Wrong. We followed standard tactical doctrine. We used our most advanced weapons and strategies. That's the problem, weapons specialist Dong-woo explained. You're fighting them like they're another galactic species, but they're not. They're more like a natural disaster. We do not understand, Commander Taemin said. Medical Officer Byung-ho stepped forward. Humans have experience fighting things that can't be reasoned with. Storms, fires, floods, predators. You don't beat them with logic or superior technology. You beat them with stubbornness and creativity. Cultural Specialist Haiwan activated a holographic display. We've identified several potential weaknesses. First, their regeneration requires energy. If you can disrupt their power systems faster than they can repair them, you can create damage windows. How do you disrupt their power systems? Admiral Hyun-soo asked. You overload them. Communications Officer Wu Jin said with a grin. Turns out they can absorb energy, but they have limits. Hit them with more power than they can process, and their systems shut down temporarily. But our strongest weapons barely scratch them, So Young protested. Because you're using energy weapons, Dongwu explained. Energy can be absorbed. But kinetic weapons, especially at high speeds, transfer momentum that has to go somewhere. And sonic weapons, he paused dramatically. Sonic weapons are pure energy transfer through matter vibration. They can't absorb sound. Mi-kyung smiled. Which brings us to our proposal. We'd like permission to engage the Devourer fleet. The council chamber erupted in protests. 50 human ships against an enemy that had destroyed thousands of vessels. This is suicide, Admiral Hyun-soo declared. Maybe, Mi-kyung admitted. But probably not. See, humans have one advantage you don't. What advantage? Bo-ra asked. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten, Yoonji said cheerfully. 3 days later, the combined human and galactic fleets faced the Devourer Armada at the edge of the Centauri system. The enemy had grown since their first encounter. 30 massive vessels, each the size of a small moon, accompanied by hundreds of smaller attack craft. Admiral Hyun-soo commanded the galactic forces from his flagship, maintaining defensive formations. According to military doctrine, the human fleet, by contrast, arranged themselves in what appeared to be a random pattern. Human fleet, please assume proper battle formation, Hyun-soo broadcast. Negative, Admiral, came Captain Wu Jin's voice. We're already in formation, it's just not a formation you recognize. The Devourers approached slowly, their ships pulsing with absorbed energy from previous battles. They showed no sign of recognizing the threat posed by such small opponents. All ships prepare for standard engagement, Admiral Hyun-soo ordered. Human fleet prepare for aggressive negotiations. Mi-kyung's voice cut across the comm channels. Aggressive negotiations? Admiral, Hyun-soo asked. Human term for diplomacy with violence, Dongwu explained helpfully. We're going to talk to them in the only language they understand. The battle began like every previous engagement. The Devourers opened fire with their molecular disassembly beams, targeting the largest galactic vessels. The defense fleet responded with coordinated energy weapon strikes that were promptly absorbed by enemy shields. Then the humans did something unprecedented. Music began broadcasting across all communication frequencies. Not communication attempts or tactical updates, but actual music. Heavy driving rhythms with aggressive vocals that seemed to match the pulse of battle. What are you doing? Admiral Hyun-soo demanded. Fighting to a soundtrack, Captain Mi-kyung replied calmly. Trust us, it helps. The human ships moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of maintaining formation, they flew erratically, almost randomly, making them impossible to target effectively. But their movement wasn't truly random. It was synchronized to the rhythm of their music. Captain Wu Jin's ship, Lucky Strike, dove between two Devourer vessels while broadcasting something he called death metal at maximum volume. The sonic energy disrupted the aliens' communication systems and caused visible distortions in their energy fields. Sonic. Weapons are working, Yoonji reported from her ship Mom's Revenge. Their absorption fields can't handle pure sound energy. All human ships, ramming speed, Mi-kyung ordered. Ramming speed? Admiral Hyun-soo couldn't believe what he was hearing. You'll be destroyed. Probably not. Dongwu's voice came from his fighter Fluffy. We calculated the impact vectors. Their shields can absorb energy, but they can't absorb momentum. Basic physics. What followed defied every rule of space combat. Human ships deliberately collided with Devourer vessels at maximum velocity, using their own kinetic energy as weapons. The impacts transferred massive amounts of momentum that the enemy shields couldn't absorb, causing structural damage that overwhelmed their regeneration systems. This is insane, Admiral Hyun-soo muttered. This is war, Mi-kyung corrected. Galactic Fleet, target the damaged sections while their regeneration is offline. You have approximately 30 seconds before they adapt. The coordinated assault worked. Galactic energy weapons, normally ineffective, found purchase on damaged hull sections. For the first time since the war began, Devourer ships took permanent damage. But the humans weren't finished. Major Byung-ho, commanding a ship called Coffee or Death, did something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, my ship is critically damaged," he reported calmly, requesting permission to perform a tactical sacrifice. "Negative, Major. Return to safe distance." "Sorry, Admiral. Can't do that. These things need to learn that humans don't give up." Byung-ho aimed his dying ship directly at the largest Devourer vessel. As he flew toward certain death, he broadcast his final message across all frequencies. "This is for every planet you've consumed. This is for every life you've taken. And this is for my daughter's future. Tell the galaxy that humans keep their promises." Coffee or Death detonated its entire antimatter supply inside the Devourer ship's hull. The explosion created a chain reaction that destroyed not only the target but 2 nearby vessels. 6 months after the Devourer War ended, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council had relocated to a larger facility to accommodate its newest members, not just the humans, but also the Devourers, who had proved surprisingly cooperative once someone bothered to actually talk to them. Dr. Shung-ho walked through the expanded Cultural Exchange Center, marveling at how much had changed. In one section, human engineers worked alongside Devourer technicians to develop new matter conversion systems that could create resources without destroying planets. In another area, Galactic Council species were learning human concepts like pack bonding and spite, while humans studied alien approaches to logic and efficiency. The biggest change was in the military sector. The Galactic Defense Fleet had been completely restructured based on human tactical concepts. Ships now had individual names instead of numerical designations. Combat units played music during battles. And most shocking of all, battle strategies now included something called calculated insanity. "Dr. Shung-ho," a familiar voice called out. Captain Mi-kyung approached with her usual cheerful energy, followed by a Devourer entity that had chosen the name Curious About Small Beings. "Captain, how are the integration talks proceeding?" Dr. Shung-ho asked. "Better than expected," Mi-kyung replied. "Turns out the Devourers are actually quite reasonable once you get past the whole eating planets thing. Curious here has some fascinating insights into galactic core phenomena. The Devourer entity, which resembled a shifting crystalline structure, pulsed with colors that the universal translator interpreted as agreement. Human friends show us new concepts. Friendship is most unusual. We do not understand why small beings would risk death for others, but we find it intriguing. Speaking of which," Mi-kyung continued, "we need to discuss the new threat reports." Dr. Seung-ho's mood darkened. The Devourers' revelations about the galactic core had been disturbing. They were fleeing from something they called the Silence, an area of space where all matter, energy, and even space-time itself seemed to be disappearing. "The scout ships returned this morning," Dr. Shung-ho said. "The Silence has expanded by 12 light-years in the past month. Whatever it is, it's accelerating." "Which is why we need to go investigate," Mi-kyung said casually. "Absolutely not," Dr. Shung-ho replied immediately. "The Council has forbidden any approach to the galactic core. It's too dangerous." "That's exactly why we need to go," Chief Engineer Yoon-ji said, joining the conversation. "Something that's scary doesn't just stay put. If we don't figure out what it is, it'll eventually come to us." This was perfectly human logic. When faced with an unknown danger, their first instinct was to investigate it personally. The rest of the galaxy preferred to monitor threats from a safe distance until they went away or became someone else's problem. "The Devourers fled from this thing," Dr. Shung-ho pointed out. "If beings who can consume planets are afraid of it, what hope do we have?" "Hope is the wrong word," Communications Officer Woo Jin said, appearing with a cup of the human beverage that had become inexplicably popular throughout the galaxy. "Humans don't investigate things because we have hope. We investigate them because we're too curious and stubborn to leave them alone." Curious About Small Beings pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Human friends demonstrate this trait consistently. They approached us during battle when logic suggested retreat. They negotiate with us when wisdom suggested avoidance. Now they wish to investigate that which caused us to flee. This is the human way. It's not just curiosity. Weapons specialist Dongwu added, joining the growing group. We've run the numbers. The silence is expanding faster than any fleet can escape. Eventually, it'll reach inhabited space. When that happens, we want to know what we're dealing with. Dr. Shung Ho understood the logic, but human logic was dangerous. Their approach to problem-solving had already revolutionized galactic civilization in ways both wonderful and terrifying. The integration of human concepts had produced remarkable results. The pack bonding principle had led to unprecedented cooperation between species. The idea of naming ships and equipment had improved maintenance efficiency as crews developed emotional attachments to their tools. Even spite had been weaponized into a tactical doctrine that was proving surprisingly effective. But it had also created new problems. 3 different species had attempted to domesticate local predators after learning about cats, with mixed results. The Aquarian Federation had started playing music during their meditation sessions, claiming it enhanced the experience. Most disturbing of all, several alien civilizations had begun experimenting with extreme sports, leading to a galaxy-wide increase in emergency medical responses. The Council will never approve a mission to the galactic core, Dr. Shung Ho said firmly. Which is why we're not asking for permission, Mi Kyung said with a smile that had become familiar and deeply concerning to those who knew humans well. Captain, Dr. Shung Ho, humanity has been part of galactic civilization for 6 months. In that time, we've helped end a war, established diplomatic relations with a species everyone thought was unstoppable, and introduced concepts that have improved life for billions of beings. Yes, but we've also proven that humans keep their promises. We promise to protect our friends. The galaxy is our friend now. That means when something threatens the galaxy, we deal with it. Medical Officer Byung-ho approached the group, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. The silence isn't random, he announced. We've detected patterns in its expansion. It's not just consuming matter. It's specifically targeting areas with high concentrations of intelligent life. How can you tell? Dr. Shung Ho asked. Because uninhabited systems in its path remain untouched, while populated areas disappear completely. Whatever the silence is, it's hunting civilizations. The implication was terrifying. An unknown force was systematically eliminating intelligent life from the galactic core, and it was expanding toward inhabited space. All the more reason to stay away, Dr. Shung Ho insisted. All the more reason to stop it before it gets here, cultural specialist Haiwan countered. Look, we understand your concerns. From your perspective, sending a small fleet to investigate an unknown cosmic horror seems insane. Because it is insane. Exactly, all the humans said simultaneously. That's why it might work, Mi Kyung explained patiently. Every other species has responded to the silence with fear and retreat. The devourers fled. The core worlds evacuated. Everyone who encounters it runs away. Because running away is the logical response. But what if logic isn't the answer? Yoonji suggested. What if the silence expects logical responses? What if it's specifically designed to counter rational tactical thinking? Curious about small beings pulsed with sudden understanding. Human friends suggest that irrationality might succeed where reason fails. This concept is intriguing. It's insane, Dr. Shung Ho repeated. Yes, Mi Kyung agreed cheerfully. Would you like to come with us? The question caught Dr. Shung Ho completely off guard. What? Well, you're the galaxy's leading expert on human psychology now. If we're going to do something crazy, we should probably have someone along who understands why we do crazy things. I am not qualified for galactic exploration. Neither were we, Dongwu pointed out. 6 months ago, we were just a species that liked music and coffee. Now we're galactic peacekeepers. Experience is overrated. 3 weeks later, Dr. Shung Ho found himself aboard the human flagship Indomitable, heading toward the galactic core as part of a joint expedition that included human ships, galactic council vessels, and even a devourer scout ship crewed by Volunteers. The fleet composition itself was unprecedented. Humans insisted on including representatives from every major species, claiming that different perspectives were essential for solving unknown problems. They had also brought along their cats, several tons of coffee, and a complete music library that apparently contained every song worth listening to. Dr. Shung Ho, Captain Mi Kyung said as they approached the edge of the silence, "You've studied human behavior for months now. In your professional opinion, what are our chances of success?" Dr. Shung Ho looked around the bridge. Engineer Yun Ji was arguing with the ship's AI about playlist choices. Dongwu was performing maintenance on weapons while humming something he called battle music. Wu Jin was attempting to teach curious about small beings how to appreciate human humor. "Scientifically speaking," Dr. Shung Ho said slowly, "our chances are effectively zero. We're flying toward a phenomenon that has consumed multiple star systems with no plan except see what happens." "And personally speaking?" Mi Kyung asked. Dr. Shung Ho looked at the crew again. This impossible species that treated friendship like a superpower turned emotions into tactical advantages and somehow made the universe a better place through sheer stubborn optimism. "Personally speaking," he said, "I wouldn't bet against humans. You have a habit of making the impossible look easy." As the fleet entered the edge of the silence, Dr. Shung Ho realized that the galaxy's greatest myth had become its greatest reality. Humans weren't the terror species of legend. They were something far more dangerous. They were hope with weapons, and they were absolutely crazy enough to save everyone.